For context, call me Rose. I'm 31 years old now, but when this happened, I was just 26 years old. I was a single mother with a 4-year-old son, living in a rented one-room apartment in Onitsha. No husband, no family support worth speaking of, just me, my son, my 2 hands, and my God. I want you to understand who I was before everything changed, because I think that matters. I wasn't a reckless woman. I wasn't stupid the way people love to say after something bad happens to them. I was just tired, the kind of tired that doesn't go away after sleep, the kind that sits in your chest like a stone you can't put down. My son's father, the man that got me pregnant, had been gone for 2 years. He didn't die, he just left us. One morning, he said he was traveling for business and he never came back. No call, no message, nothing. I found out through his cousin that he had married another woman in Port Harcourt, a woman with a degree and a government job. He didn't even tell I and my son goodbye. He just abandoned us like we were rags. During that year, my mother was not well. She had diabetes, the type that had already eaten 2 of her toes. Every time I looked at her feet, something inside me broke quietly. She needed proper hospital visits. She needed food beyond just soaking garri and vegetables. And I had one small shop, one son, and 26 years of my life that had not prepared me for any of this. That was my life. My neighbor, let's call her Miss Gloria. Miss Gloria had lived 3 doors from me for almost a year in our Face Me I Face You compound before we became close. She was in her mid-40s. She was warm. That is what I remember most about her. She was the kind of woman who remembered people's children by name. She brought you a small bag of tomatoes when she came back from the market, who would sit on your veranda and ask, "How are you?" and actually meant it. We grew close the way women do when they are both alone and both surviving. She told me that she had done businesses abroad, mostly in African countries. She spoke about it casually, like someone talking about a trip to Lagos. She told me there were opportunities there for hardworking women, hotel cleaning jobs, catering, domestic help. She mentioned huge amount of money that made my ears ring. You get to earn 500,000 naira a month. And even more, she told me. Some of the girls, they are sending home even more than that. If you leave Nigeria, you'll be able to take care of your sick mother and your son. I only came back to Nigeria because I was getting old and could not walk anymore. I listened. I didn't say much, but I listened. I thought about the huge amount of money she was calling. Like, which African country pays so much for just menial jobs? Maybe I was overthinking, or maybe I was just desperate to survive, to leave Nigeria and make money to take care of my son and my mother. Something small and quiet was whispering in the back of my mind. Everyone in Nigeria has heard the stories. The one that starts with, she was promised a job abroad and ends in things too terrible to say. But this was Miss Gloria we were talking about. She can't harm me. I trusted her so much. She had sat in my room and eaten my food. She was not a stranger at a bus stop. That is the thing nobody tells you about how these things really happen. It is never the obvious stranger. It is always someone who already knows exactly where your wound is. It was January. Harmattan was so bad that day. My son had been coughing for 2 weeks. I couldn't afford the hospital. My mother called me from the village to say her left foot was swelling again. And the local chemist said she needed a proper hospital, not a chemist. A proper hospital needed money. I didn't have. I was so broke and helpless. I was not making any money from my shop. I sat on my veranda that evening and I cried like a baby. Not dramatically, the kind of crying that is almost like breathing. Quiet, continuous and exhausting. I was so tired of my life and even thought of ending it all. The suffering was too much. Miss Gloria, my neighbor, found me there. She sat down. She didn't rush me. She just sat. And after I told her about my mother's foot, the bills, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Rose, I have been waiting to bring this to you. I didn't want to pressure you, but I think God is speaking right now. God is telling me to help you." She told me about a hotel in a certain African country. I can't mention it just for privacy reasons. A Nigerian man owns the hotel. He needed young, hardworking women for cleaning and kitchen work. 3 months contract, accommodation was included, and that was all. 500,000 naira per month, with the first month paid in advance before you even left Nigeria. All you need to do is just to clean. Other girls are there too, she said, looking at me with pity. You will come back with at least 1.5 million naira, she said. Your mother will be fine. Your son will be fine. You will finally rest from all this you're suffering. 1.5 million. I could not believe my ears. I want you to understand what that amount of money meant to me in that moment. Me that I have not seen 100,000 naira in my life before. It meant my mother's hospital bills will be settled. It meant sleeping without the ceiling fan of worrying spinning all night in my head. I told her that I would think about it, but she already knew my answer because she knew my wound and how desperate I was in need of money. She gave me 2 weeks to decide. In those 2 weeks, my mother's foot got worse. The swelling spread. The chemist man treating her said her leg might be amputated if care is not taken. My landlord came twice for overdue rent. My son's cough became a chest infection, and the pediatric clinic asked for 20,000 naira before they would even touch him. Just 20,000 naira, and I could not even afford it. I was so poor, Hey! I didn't even have 20,000 naira. I sold my market umbrella. I sold 2 of my water gallons. I borrowed 3,000 naira from a church friend who apologized that she didn't have more to give to me. I treated my son, but my mother was still waiting for her own treatment. And then immediately I called Mrs. Gloria. I told her I was ready to go just to get that money and survive. I even told her I can work for 6 months instead of 3 months. That in fact, if the man is refusing to pay the advance, that I will go like that without him giving me the money for advance. She was at my door within an hour, all smiles and warm hands. She told me not to worry about anything. She would handle the travel documents, handle everything. I just needed to be ready in 3 weeks. She told me to keep it quiet, not because anything is wrong, Rose, but when people hear about abroad, jealousy will make them confuse you with bad stories or even confuse you not to go. So you better not tell anybody. That was my first real red flag, but I buried it under hope. I left my son with my cousin. Let's call her Nancy. She lived nearby. I told Nancy I was going for a short contract and would call when I arrived. I gave her 12,000 naira I had saved for my son's feeding. The night before I left, I knelt beside my sleeping son, his little chest rising and falling, his small fist coiled beside his cheek. I whispered, Mama will come back with money for everything. Just wait for Mama. I didn't know these words would become a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. There were 6 of us in total going to that country. I met the other girls at the motor park at Onitsha before dawn. Miss Gloria introduced us with bright smiles and first names only. There was Kate. The girl was 19 years old. She wanted to save money for her university. There was another girl called Blessing. She was 23. Also had a sick mother. There was Grace. She was older, maybe around 32 years, quiet and watchful. And 2 other girls also named Sandra and Vivian. We traveled by roads to Lagos, then towards the border. I won't describe the route in detail because even now, years later, thinking about it makes my chest tighten. We crossed into the country, then moved further north. We stayed in different guest houses every night. Miss Gloria kept all our documents. She said it was safer for immigration purposes. That was the second red flag. She had all our documents. I asked quietly when we reached the hotel. She laughed and patted my hand. We are almost there, my dear. The road to good money is never short. On the 4th day, in a place I didn't recognize, the car stopped at a compound, not a hotel. A compound with a high fence, a human generator, and several men standing outside in a way that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I was just uncomfortable and felt unsettled. My mind just kept telling me something was wrong. Miss Gloria got out of the car. She did not look back at us. A man I had never seen before opened the car door. Another man in English said simply, "Calm down, all of you, now." Immediately, one of the girls asked what was going on. One of the men there gave her a dirty slap. My body started shaking immediately. I just kept asking myself if I have been trafficked. I looked at the girl beside me. She looked at me, confused. We were all confused and scared. Something cold moved through my chest. God, I prayed silently. Please let me be wrong. I was not wrong. We were taken inside. Our phones were forcefully collected from us. Our documents, the one Miss Gloria had been holding, were handed to the man in charge. He was Nigerian. He spoke calmly. He was not shouting, not threatening. He was speaking the way someone conducts ordinary business. That calm voice of his was the most terrifying thing I have ever experienced in my life. He told us in a flat voice that we had been brought to work, not in a hotel, not as cleaners. He told us clearly that we've been brought for prostitution and we better behave if we don't want to die. I found that letter from a girl who had been there longer that Miss Gloria had received 1.5 million naira for the 6 of us, that this is her regular job, bringing girls for prostitution. 250,000 per woman. That is what I was worth to her. That is what she did with my trust, with my son's name in her mouth, with all the kindness she had performed, claiming she wants to help me. She sold me. This evil woman sold us and drove away without looking back. The whole thing was just like drama. I was so confused and could not speak. That first night, they performed what the older girls there called the oaths. They made us shave our private parts and collected our nails, all sort of dirty things. I cannot describe it here fully. It was designed to bind you with fear, to make you believe that if you ran away or spoke to anyone outside, something terrible would happen to you or your family back home. They mentioned my son's name during the oath taking. We were all naked while taking the oath. I held a little dirty calabash that I didn't even know for how many years it has been used by other girls. I was shocked for hours, my whole body uncontrollable. I kept thinking maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe there's still an explanation. There was no explanation. There was no hotel. There was no contract. There was no cleaning job. That night we got into work. We were given clothes to change into. I slept with 5 men that night. It was a horrible experience. I won't spend long in this part because some things are too heavy to carry in full details. What I will tell you is that the conditions were beyond what words can properly explain. We worked with our body, sleeping with different men. We were not paid. We were fed just enough to remain functional. Complaint had consequences. Any attempts to reach the outside world had consequences. We just remained in that building. One girl, I'll call her Anne, she had been there for 4 months before us. By the time we arrived, she had stopped speaking. She just moved through the days. Her eyes were present, but whatever lived behind them had traveled somewhere far away. Another girl, a quiet girl named Joy, got sick. She was very sick. There was no doctor. A man came sometimes with medicine, but he was not a doctor. And what he gave us was not always what we needed. One girl died on a Tuesday. I know it was Tuesday because I had started counting days on the wall with my thumb. They carried her away. No announcements, no moments of silence. The generator kept humming like nothing had happened. I sat after they took her body and thought, nobody knows I am here. Nobody will know if I disappear the same way. And something shifted in me that moment. Not courage exactly. It was more like the complete and total death of the option of giving up. When you realize that dying here quietly and dying trying to escape have the same ending. Something in you chooses motion over stillness. I started watching. I started paying attention to everything that was happening in that building. About 2 months in, the date I have been writing on the wall said somewhere around 60 days. A different kind of visitor came to the compound. There was this young man, maybe around my age. He was the son of a local chief there, and he came sometimes as a guest. But unlike the others, this young man looked at us in the eyes. He spoke to us like we were people, not objects in a room used for fun. One evening, he pulled me aside and spoke in a broken English with mixed French. He said, "You people should not be here." I looked at him and told him if he wanted to help, then he should, instead of feeling pity when he's still one of their regular customers. I will call this guy James. James began moving carefully and quietly. Then he spoke to another man, a local man with some freedom to come and go, who I will call Peter. Peter was not a bad man turned good. I think he was always a decent man who had been waiting for a reason to act. James gave him that reason. James gave him huge amount of money and begged him to help us escape. Hi besties, if this is your first time here, you're welcome. My name is Percy Patrick and here I read out true life stories about people's experience. If this is what you like, consider subscribing to my channel. Like this video, share with your loved ones, and remember to turn on the notification bell so that whenever I post, you get notified. Okay, now let's continue from where I stopped. It took 3 more weeks of careful silent planning, whispered conversations, messages hidden in the folds of clothes or the bottom of your food bowl. 3 of us were chosen, me, Kate and Blessing, because we were the most physically able at that time. The others were too weak, too broken, or too afraid. Sandra grabbed my hand before we left. She begged me not to go without her. That moment had never left me, not one day. I told her we would send help once we left the place. I told her to hold on. I don't know if she believed me. I barely believed myself. The night we escaped, I was so afraid I could hear my own heart beat in my ears like a drum. I had many thoughts in my head. What if I get caught and these people kill me at the spot? What if James was just pretending to help me? I thought about so many things, but my mind was made up. Anything that wants to happen, let it happen. I'd rather die trying to escape than dying here. Peter had arranged a vehicle for part of the journey, not the whole way, just enough to get past the first danger zone. We left just after 2 in the morning. We made sure to remove our shoes in order not to get caught. The ground was dry and rough, and I felt every stone beneath my feet, but I did not make a single sound. Kate held my hand very tight. Blessing stayed close behind me. We moved fast, slow and quiet, the way a prey moves when it knows the predator is near. My lungs burned. I was so thirsty. My feet started bleeding. At one point, a dog began barking somewhere behind us, and my entire body turned to ice. We kept moving quietly. The vehicle Peter arranged took us to a town. Then we entered a bus that took us to the border. I was looking so malnourished and skinny. I kept on thinking about my son, my mom. My mom must have cried her eyes out, thinking I was already dead, since she has not heard from me. When my feet touched Nigerian soil, I finally cried. Not before, not during the running. Only then, I crouched down and put my hand flat on the ground and sobbed. Kate was holding me. Blessing was praying out loud, right there. She didn't care who heard. People were just staring at us, but we didn't care. Only our eyes knows what we've seen. We had nothing. No phones, torn clothes, bleeding feet, but we were back. James had given us just enough cash for transport and food. I have never been able to properly thank him. I don't know if I ever will. We reached a shelter run by a Nigerian NGO that works with trafficking survivors. They received us, fed us, gave us medical attention. They helped us contact our families. When I walked into Nancy's house and saw my son sitting on the floor playing with a plastic toy, I couldn't speak for almost a full minute. He looked at me, he said, "Mommy," and immediately I fell to my knees and held him, and he said, "Mommy, why are you crying? Did somebody beat you?" And I laughed and cried at the same time and said, "No, baby, nobody beat Mommy. Mommy just missed you so much." My mother was still very sick, but she was alive. When she saw me, she held my face in both her hands and looked at me for a long time without speaking. She's not a dramatic woman. She doesn't cry easily, but tears fell down her face slowly, silently. She said, "I prayed every day for you, my daughter. I thought you were dead." I said, "I know, Mommy, I know you prayed for me, and your prayer saved me." I reported Miss Gloria to the authorities, but unfortunately she was nowhere to be found and has already moved from our compound. The other tenants claim they do not know where she moved to. I described everything I could remember. I gave names, description, location, everything, all the things I went through. I don't know what became of her after that. Part of me just wants justice. If not for one thing, I would have personally dealt with her myself. I still have nightmares, not every night, but often enough that I keep the lights on. I wake up sometimes and check if my son is in the room, just to see him breathing. I have sat in church and been unable to sing because a song triggered something and I had to excuse myself to cry quietly in the bathroom where nobody could see me. I don't talk about this at family gatherings. My aunties would ask questions that feel like they were blaming me for wanting more money, for being greedy. The girls I left behind, Sandra, Grace, Vivian, I don't know what happened to them. The authorities said they were working on it. I pray for them by name. I say their names every time I pray. I don't know if they are still alive. This is the part that never fully heals. The part where I got out and they didn't. I am not sharing this story for pity. I am sharing it because Miss Gloria is still out there. Not just her. People exactly like her. In every state, every city, every church, every WhatsApp group, identifying women who are tired and desperate for money. They look kind, they remember your children's name, they know your mother is sick, so please hear me clearly. If someone offers you a job abroad and asks to hold your travel documents, leave immediately. If someone tells you to keep an opportunity secret from people, that is your sign to run away. If the salary sounds like it only exists in most of your desperate prayer, pause. Ask harder questions. Tell someone. The shame of asking questions is absolutely nothing compared to what I have described in this story. I am okay now. Not fully healed, but okay. My son is growing. My mother is managing. I have rebuilt slowly. The way you rebuild after a flood. Not the same structure as before, but something that stands, and I am so grateful for surviving. I am sending this story because there is a woman reading this right now who is exactly where I was, tired. Someone has offered her something that sounds like an answered prayer. I want her to hear me. It is not what it looks like. Please go home and manage the little you have. Wow, what a story. Like, I'm literally shaking. Imagine being trafficked to another country with the promise of being paid. But actually, there was a red flag. Because how can you be paid 500,000 naira just for cleaning, cooking? It sounds too good in the ear to be true. You just have to be very careful. I know the country is hard and everybody wants to relocate. Everybody is tired, but calm down. Things are really happening. Like, things are happening. I just wish I recovery because this kind of thing can put you into depression. Thank you so much for watching. I'll end this here. Please remember to like this video if you haven't. Subscribe to my channel. Support me, okay? I'll see you on my next video. Bye.